Hi, everybody. This is really 1795, 96. Um, and just so much happening um, since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room in July of 2020, and his life was taken from him for being a whistleblower. A whistleblower against the criminal trafficking, the cartel tied, but also the government agency tied cartel trafficking, criminal trafficking. And, I'm just going to be so honest with you. The last few days have been extremely difficult, psychologically, extremely difficult, because, we have paid so much taxpayer money um, to prevent mass graveyards, right? Mass rotting body dumping grounds, right? We have seen this in the past, and um, we knew that things were really bad surrounding our son's case. We knew they were really bad. And make sure I'm on. We knew that it was really bad because these soldiers, even the top of the command, the way the generals responded, they were shaking in their boots. They were in total fear. They were in fear. And even in their complicity, even lining their pockets, they were in fear. Because this is absolute treason against God. Okay, you can call it treason against the country, absolutely. Treason in Mexico, absolutely. But first and foremost, it's if you're a Christian and you read the Bible, you understand David in Psalm 51. He's saying, against you and against you alone I have sinned, oh God, right? I mean, the sin is the transgression is against God first and foremost, and when things are to this point where they are absolutely discarding and what do you call it when you are, this is where I'm saying psychologically, the damage done when you see bodies, hundreds of bodies piled on top of each other. My grandfather was buried in a mass grave, in Russia. And my mother and father, because they worked for the embassy, the United States embassy there in Moscow, Russia, and witnessed the Iron Curtain coming down. They were there in the 1990s. And they were then allowed to go into this locked, forbidden city, okay, where my grandfather, her father, was buried. They had locked it for over 50 years. They closed it down. No one was allowed to go in there because it was the site of a mass grave. It was horrendous. And we have international, like the UN and all of this said, okay, we all have to pay tax money. New York is the home of this UN, and they're going to make sure that things like this don't happen, that we don't have the killing fields like in Asia, right? In Cambodia, which is still suffering. Cambodia is still suffering because those killing fields, those mass graves, were of Christians, farmers, those that had any kind of education, those that had traveled outside of Cambodia. They were targeted and mass graves. We have the mass graves. Um, of course, we know the ones that are really promoted, but like my grandfather, that was discarded in a mass grave, and now it's a real possibility. It is so much so that the investigation has led there. And there is evidence confirming that it needs to lead there, that it leads there to this narco mass graveyard, rotting bodies, a stone throw away from Fort Bliss, from El Paso. And El Paso government powers there absolutely implicated in this. And Fort Bliss implicated in this. In a narco rotting body mass graveyard. And that the owner is absolutely family connected to the government structures there in Chihuahua, Mexico. And, our investigation, which is so comprehensive, I can't even tell you what we've accomplished is absolutely a miracle, is huge. What we've accomplished in uncovering from the illegal and unauthorized chief medical examiner, Mario Raskin Ortiz, with his family connections in the morgue business in Juarez, Mexico. Brought over by Veronica Escobar when she was the county judge. Approved his $400,000+ a year tax funded salary. Approved it. And he had the authority over the Walmart mass shooting victims, every last one of them. And he was connected to some of them. That's why we know, and it's been confirmed by that what we've uncovered by someone that would know, an authority, an official, that said that crime scene was staged. And then recently, the retired FBI agent Michael Cordero confirmed that the FBI did not even secure the Walmart mass shooting scene for over 2 days. over 48 hours and that it was tampered with and walked on. And we know that Jaime Esparza walked that crime scene before it was secured, and that pictures and recordings were made that were not turned in to the evidence. We know that it was totally botched because we had millions of dollars of taxpayer funded, years of delays and seals and deals and all kinds of nonsense, very evil nonsense in the case. And there was never a trial date set. Never a trial date set in the Walmart mass shooting case, and never a trial. And you had a federal case and a state case, and never a trial date even set, and never, ever a trial. Because the evidence would expose this operation, this orchestrated, set up crime scene. And it was bloody. I'm not denying that it wasn't bloody, because we have Alexander Gerhard Hoffman and others. We have the videos that were not put into the evidence. We have the recordings of Joe Spencer, the defense attorney. We have the most corrupt judge in El Paso history, Sam Medrano, making these unlawful agreements, these seals and the gag orders and everything that absolutely confirms that this was a political operation to protect narco rotting body mass graveyards and the funeral industry, the you know there is all kinds of parts to the syndicate, because you absolutely have the criminal trafficking, which I've stressed over and over again, because it includes so many different elements of trafficking, from the intake center, where we have hundreds of thousands of children being trafficked, and they call them unaccompanied. They put these pretty words on there instead of saying taken, because no way in hell were hundreds of thousands of children unaccompanied. And then they put the pretty word migrant on there, and you might call that not a pretty word, but these are absolutely maneuvered individuals to be exploited, be it them criminal or not. They were absolutely maneuvered to be exploited. And in that, millions of people coming through the border, not being vetted illegally, not having the legal documents, the legal vetting process that any country does. That is normal. Anybody that has a home, a neighborhood, the neighborhood watch, right? The neighborhood watch. you have a country that watches to make sure. And this was all ignored. And through that, people think that these millions of people that are traveling together with all kinds of nonsense going on, all kinds of crimes going on during that time, that there would not be a lot of loss of life. And where did these bodies end up? And who is paying for their removal? And who is benefiting from the pay of their removal? And when they're in these prisons, who is paying for the loss of life and the removal of these bodies? And how are they being removed? And who is benefiting from the removal? And uh, how are they skirting their contracts or uh, their duties? Because that's going on everywhere. Their obligations when they're getting paid to remove these bodies, and then they are con artists on top of that, and just give you, animal ashes. No joking. Or just pile them in a mass grave. And how is a society allowing something like this to happen? How have we lost our way when it comes to, and you know, uh, the way I try to explain it is Corpus Christi, right? The Christian view of the body. Why was the UN even, and why were people even horrified by mass graves in the past and mass killing fields in the past? It was because of a Christian foundation of Corpus Christi, knowing that humans are made in the image of God, and that to desecrate the human body is sacrilege, is a crime against God. This is absolutely horrifying. And if we have fallen so far that that we are not horrified at the sacrilege here, that what good is the UN if they're not going to be horrified by this sacrilege, which was the reason, the whole purpose for them to be in existence anyway, for human rights and uh, uh, for the human body. I mean, what are human rights even if we don't have respect for the human body? And if an international commission is not called immediately to these narco mass graveyards of rotting bodies, which now they're putting in bags, the you know um the pictures are just absolutely horrifying, and they're trying to clean it up, and not to clean it up because they have any respect for the families of uh these remains that were dumped like this, rotting there in the most I mean, it just makes you throw up, right? When you see the pictures, the psychological damage of this and those bodies, some of them in uniform. I mean, I can't lie to you. It's just been like hell because we have reports of remains of Richard being found in Juarez and a incredible 15 plus, now 22 plus agency cover up. The level that the Mexican government along with the American government was going to, in order to cover up the death of a US Army soldier whistleblower, Fort Bliss, was just jaw-dropping to us. We knew we knew this was very serious. And when Nadal Baim confirmed that Richard was no longer alive and that his remains were being found in Juarez, and we went to the State Department and they confirmed it, and we talked to got confirmation through other witnesses, and then um, uh, the liaison for the uh, to the Department of State from DHS confirmed that the Mexican government were covering up finding Richard's remains over in Juarez. We have all that. We know that Richard's remains, being it all or partial remains, were in Juarez. And where did they end up? The thought of his remains and in those rotting piles of remains at this narco mass graveyard, there were partial remains, dismembered remains. And to know that in Richard's case, the common denominator I've said is Mormons, but it's also, and this Casa Grandes road that this mass grave was found on, that is absolutely connected to the Mormons. And then to know that not only is the common denominator that, but the common denominator is individuals that are involved with the funeral business. And to have the Mexican authorities confirm that the funeral homes were involved in this, that means purchase, y'all. That means purchase funeral homes. Well, who was the lawyer for Purchase Funeral Homes? Who is the sole lawyer for Purchase Funeral Homes? It's Bill Hicks. It's the usurper Bill Hicks that was appointed to be the district attorney, the prosecutor for El Paso, for the 34th Judicial District Attorney. How can that be? So you've got Mario Raskin-Ortiz, the medical examiner. You've got Representative Veronica Escobar with blood on their hands. And now you have Bill Hicks with blood on his hands. And who is his number one donor? Purchase Funeral Homes. And Purchase Funeral Homes worked together with Mario Raskin-Ortiz, the chief medical examiner that's illegal and unqualified, in the removal of the bodies of the victims in the Walmart mass shooting. And the Ortiz name is connected to the autopsies numbers that we have for Richard. And to know that CID agent Tavita Nusa on Fort Bliss was identified as a prime suspect in the murder of our son, and that he had his badge terminated in 2021, and has this connection with his family of mortuary affairs, controlling his brother, controlling the oversight, having oversight, being part of the oversight, I should say, of Fort Bliss in mortuary affairs for the military. I can't, y'all, his brother and that Amber Chase targeting Richard in the most vile and vulgar manner, and then targeting our family in the most vile and vulgar manner, is mortuary affairs and working for El Paso ISD, where El Paso ISD schools are now confirmed to have tunnels underneath the schools, and the fire assistant chief was made illegally without any kind of peace officer's license. The chief of police of ISD, just days after the Walmart mass shooting, and is absolutely connected to A&R Chavira Auto Group, tying this all together with the targeting of Richard, the trafficking of his car, and now we have, because his remains were trafficked, his car was trafficked, and the generals, the CIT, absolutely involved in the cover-up to protect the narco mass graveyard of rotting bodies, hundreds of them. Who profited off of this? Who was profiting off of these funerals? Who was profiting off of government funded funerals and removal of remains? And that these entities, they need to be investigated how they followed through on what they were contracted to do in the removal of human remains. Where did these human remains go? And to know that the FBI had those in there, like George Toros, like Jesus Eddie Nieto Jr., that were protected, that their marriages, Cynthia Hernandez Nieto being in intelligence on Fort Bliss. Intelligence is all about the deaths of soldiers, and it's all about how to transport and all of that, like Noosa's brother. And for George Toros, for his wife, Melissa Dawn Mendez, to be working alongside Alexis Mayela, the daughter of Michael Mayella, the manager of the federal courthouse, and the sister of Michael G. Mayella, who was working in the DA's office, in the FBI's office, for Walmart cybersecurity during this whole Walmart thing, during the whole thing with Richard. And he is a trained cybersecurity technician and hacker. And to know that Alexis Mayella working with Melissa Mendez, Dr. Melissa Mendez at Texas Tech University Health Science Center, is married to, listen to this, Alexis Mayella is married to the brother of the quote unquote mass shooter of the Walmart mass shooting. And to know, so you've got the criminal trafficking, and then and knowing that the Rocha's family plays a part, the Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, the Danae Katzen, this whole cartel group, this whole cartel tied group to the funeral business, to the profiting off of the removals. And we have from the attorney of Patrick Crusius demanding an open checkbook from the taxpayers, that's their game, is to get these open checkbooks, meaning taxpayer funds, to line their pockets, right, for personal gain. And now we have the funeral business connecting with Fort Bliss, connecting with the Department of Defense. And you see that with Jules Tuganon Chan, with the intake center, with the response to the Walmart mass shooting, to HR, Jed Eric Chan, these two brothers that want to stay anonymous, but they're not anonymous, y'all. And then connecting all together. And then the biggest connection is like Leilani Hart and Bob Moore of El Paso Matters with his wife, Kathleen Gannon, all part of this. That's covering the media part, because you've got to protect yourself in the media with the narrative. And that's why you saw all this false, fake narrative going out there over and over again about the Walmart mass shooting and about our son's case. And yet it took them, and now they're trying to, uh, I don't know how they're going to spin or manipulate this rotting body mass graveyard. I don't see how they can do that. It's starting to be reported now. But the question is, you've got those that are in this funeral business, those that are profiting off of making sure there's a lot of people that need funerals, and then profiting off of uh, benefits, death benefits, disability benefits, and death benefits. And lo and behold, you have Dallas Hart, who is the prime suspect of the prime suspects in the murder of our son. And his daddy is at the helm of death benefits at the VA. Because when you're talking about taxpayer funds, it's like an open checkbook. And then you don't have to wonder why we're $37 trillion in debt, because there has been so much exploiting of the American taxpayer open checkbooks. And they just absolutely made a business out of it, exploiting it to the nth degree. and to such low hell. Low is It's a spiral down into the darkest, deepest pit, because now you have in Juarez, of course, if it's happening in Juarez, then it's just a matter of time before it comes and happens in the United States. We're not immune to this desecration. Hundreds of rotting bodies in a mass graveyard, a narco mass graveyard, connected to political elites in Mexico, and now connected because to purchase to look, if you're going to connect this to Bill Hicks, who's a usurper, right, but appointed, and of course you have Representative Veronica Escobar with her ties to Mario Raskin Ortiz and her targeting our son's case, our son. And of course there needs to be an international commission. We've paid our taxes to have that, right? Isn't that what the UN is supposed to be doing? Is supposed to be investigating with an international commission of mass rotting body graveyards by criminal organizations? That needs to come to Juarez. That needs to come to Chihuahua, Mexico. And it needs to come to Fort Bliss, because there is a real possibility that Richard's DNA is in one of these, well, in this mass rotting body graveyard. I mean, it's not like, you know, this beautiful graveyard where you have everybody, everybody having a stone and is well respected and cared for. No, these are just thrown out, dismembered, thrown bodies on top of each other, some in a car there, out in the sun, rotting. I mean, the sacrilege is, like I said, this is so psychologically, um, the people that do this must be heavily medicated. They must be on huge drugs. How do you live with yourself when you are committing crimes against God at this level? I mean, these are the unforgivable crime. Is this the unforgivable sin? This kind of sacrilege, the sin against the Holy Spirit, um the real, you know, in my faith, we believe that the Eucharist, the body of Christ, it's the real presence in the Eucharist. And that has been fought over for centuries in amongst the Christian faith. And I stand very firm on my belief that the Eucharist must be respected. That is absolutely the real presence of Christ. Just to be reminded by God every time that we participate in the Eucharist, in taking of the Eucharist, of Corpus Christi, of how special humans are. And I do not deny that animals are special, but humans are made in the image of God. And we have a duty to respect all of what God has created. And it's so beautiful, and it gives you peace. And that, at least try at least every week to be reminded of that, of the sanctity of life, the sanctity of the body. That's why I hold very firm to the real presence in the Eucharist, the real presence of Corpus Christi in the Eucharist. Because of that just unbelievable, beautiful reminder of who we are. And from the very beginning of this, they wanted to discard Richard because they had discarded him. They absolutely had found him, his remains. And they wanted to do this, discarding, when the evidence piled up and April 24th, 2024, they declared Richard deceased. Okay, yeah, we knew he was deceased, right? We knew. And they had to officially declare that. And they wanted to push us to having a memorial, to refuse to give us our son's remains, even though we knew that the evidence confirmed his life was taken on Fort Bliss, that he was forcibly removed and taken, and his life was taken and ended on Fort Bliss, and that they had disrespected his body, his corpse, his remains, which is such a huge crime. And they wanted to just say, just discard that and say, oh, you have 24 hours, what was it, 48 hours to get here. We're going to have a memorial on Fort Bliss for him. And we're like, hell no, you're not. Where's his remains? They wanted to put a lid on it. They wanted to put his case in cold case and put a lid on it, that they committed the worst type of crimes, not only to take his life, but to disrespect his body. And this is our society, thinking we can disrespect children's bodies, disrespect the woman's body, disrespect the unborn baby's body. Just call it, oh, just something, not a life. They want to end the sanctity of life because they hate God. They really hate God. And the body is in the image of God. They're really the worst, because that leads us to a spiral down into the darkest abyss where there's gnashing of teeth and a psychological, and that's why you see so many psychological problems, because of this war on the sanctity of life. And what better way to confirm exactly what I'm saying than to see what they have done a stone throw away from Fort Bliss, from El Paso. And even on Fort Bliss, think about what they were doing in the emergency intake center to those children, that they were delivering them to strip joints and parking lots that were empty, only with the tactical move storage units ready for shipping containers. They were delivering what, dozens at a time, to shipping containers, to strip joints. And now we find hundreds. Where are the other locations? This is one location piled upon another, and finding out that there's some in uniform, that we're still waiting, but we're getting information that there's dog tags, phones, shoes, all this, but you've got confirmation that some are in uniform. They're sending individuals in uniform to be piled up and let rotting. This is illegal, and then the confirmation that the funeral homes, that this is being funded by USAID, and that Purchase Funeral Home, and that's very important why I'm mentioning them. There's others, but it's very important because Bill Hicks targeted Richard. Bill Hicks targeted Yvonne Rosales. Bill Hicks worked together with Bob Moore. Bill Hicks worked to protect this rotting body mass graveyard, criminal trafficking, funeral criminal trafficking syndicate. How do you label this? It is human rights violation. It is sin against God. It is sacrilege. It is just the worst type of crimes. It's so bad that people must be, and they confirmed it to me, that they were on massive medication. And I saw it with my own eyes that they were shaking. They were scared as hell. And you know what I know now? That I can tell you, they were scared of God. Because they had all kinds of level of protection, right? They had all kinds of level of protection with these 22 agencies and institutions. But why was Jaime Corona shaking like a leaf? I mean, it was physically tormenting him. Why were so many on Fort Bliss, like Command Sergeant Major Jake Jakovitz, totally tormented, shaking like you wouldn't believe, and yet targeted us, targeted our son, joined the criminal group that is protecting this narco rotting body mass graveyard. That includes this whole thing with children, this whole thing with all this criminal. It includes this whole thing. It's all together. They each have their little niche, right? Let's profit off of the substances, the illegal substances. Let's profit off of the worst type of crimes against children that we turn into films. Let's profit off of the trafficking of children. Let's profit off of the trafficking of guns, of ammunition, let's just profit off of the trafficking of all this equipment that's at Fort Bliss. And now we're said we can't give equipment and weapons to Ukraine because our levels are so low. Our levels are so low. Why are our levels so low? We're constantly that's one thing we manufacture because it's being trafficked. It's being trafficked. And then you have a niche in the funeral business, the niche in the car. Like, was A&R Chavira providing vehicles for the funeral business? I mean, he- he's El Paso ISD. He trafficked Richard's car. This business that includes Bob Moore of El Paso matters. They all find their little, several little niches so that they can, and they're all criminal, so that they can pad their pocket, and they don't even understand how it's making them sick. It's making them sick. How can you? And it's bringing in that kind of taint, that kind of pollution into their community, into their country, into I mean, it's there's a reason why we have uh, a law enforcement and a judicial system, um and I'm not a big fan of the UN, but there's this reason why the UN got the support it did to even become the UN. And that was because of these kind of human rights violations, that people felt like there was too much corruption in their governments to have proper oversight of these human rights violations. And now we have it. We even have it. So, it's like there needs to be an international commission. Let's see what they do with it. Because we believe there's a real possibility our son's remains are there. And of course, this morning, and now of course, we're at the July 3rd, 2025. Um, but yesterday, early morning, less than 24 hours ago, um, hundreds of family members were there at the Attorney General's office in Juarez demanding answers. And it was just a one big cover up. And the governor, is smiling and everything in these pictures. It's really, it's so sickening. Um, so we'll see. But this is really, there's a crackdown because the media is reporting on it now, which is tells you there's a crackdown. There's a crackdown. And we have confirmation through our own communications that there's a crackdown. That this is a change. And I said that the floodgates of accountability are open. This is it. And uh, the way we watch TV and the way we think things should happen is very immediate, right? Because we can get answers so immediately from like a search engine or the AI, right? We can get these answers so immediately, and we believe that our governments work like that. Well, they don't, and I know that uh, the Trump administration is working at lightning speed. I mean, we've never seen anything like this. I mean, he's changed everything, and I think right now there's being a vote in the Congress on the BBB, the big beautiful bill, um, and we'll see if that gets passed. This is at lightning speed. That's my point. Is this humongous bill gets through in this short of time? Um, it's really amazing. So Richard's case and what we've accomplished in and it's going to be 5 years in August, so or July now this month, right? Oh my gosh, it's July. Um, yeah, but we didn't start until really the investigation didn't start until September 1st, y'all. So the official investigation of Fort Bliss didn't start until September 1st, 2020. So we're going to get up to 5 years, and what we've accomplished is really absolutely amazing. And I think that we had a role, a very important role, um, in exposing all of this corruption to get the answers of what happened to our son, where is his remains. And I hope that we serve as an example that they can't just discard the remains. They can't just violate human rights, play with human remains, and not be held accountable. And not be held accountable because it's so damaging to the psyche of a country. It's destruction of the psyche of the country. It cannot be tolerated. We want our son's remains. We want him to be honored. Everything that they've said about him has absolutely shattered. It's just, they've just lied and lied and lied. And he is so sparkling clean, y'all. He's so beautiful. And he's this amazing hero, amazing whistleblower hero who really um, was the linchpin, right? The linchpin to change. I think it's a real chance to bring down this criminal syndicate and bring in, help bring in the golden age, not just for El Paso, Fort Bliss, our military, um, but also uh, for Mexico, for Juarez, for Chihuahua, and those individuals. And if you speak Spanish, God bless you. Please translate what we've done and share that in Spanish. I always want to do that. I know it's very easy with AI to translate, but it is just, I cannot even tell you what's going on behind the scenes. It is so active, active and ongoing, active and ongoing, and the responses and everything going on. It's just, so if you speak Spanish, and um, please share all of our information in Spanish. And if you speak German, that would be really wonderful too, to get this message out in German and in any language that that you know, to get this, because this is about human rights, right? This is about human rights. This is about the sanctity of life. This is about honoring God to the highest level. Because if you don't respect the image of God, you're going to really suffer. This is where Richard's spirit really haunts the demons. The demons are just so afraid of Richard's spirit, right? And the demons are just, you know, uh, making people so afraid, and just it's just terrible. It just ruins so many. So we're very grateful for any sharing of this information to get out. So let's read the comments now. Um, Martha, thank you so much for your prayers and your love. And Anicia, thank you for your prayers and your love also. And Mama, restful night. Yep. Thank you for the prayers. And Elizabeth, thank you. You're so brave for exposing this corruption, and I pray you will receive closure and justice soon. Thank you so much. And um, it is just, we're so grateful for everyone to send. I've gotten so many beautiful messages and um, a lot of thanks, a lot of thanks. And we want to return that thank you because it is people watching, people paying attention, people sharing the information. That's the real power. That is what it's the multiplying of this message getting out that is the real power. The force multiplier, they call it, the force multiplier. You're the force. You're the force. And you know, God gave us power to be children of God, right? And to be this force multiplier. And so we're very grateful for everyone sharing this message and just all the prayers because it is really horrifying. And if we didn't have our faith, um, it is really horrifying to think of Richard's remains being there, what that all means. And it's a real possibility, y'all. It really is. Martha, thank you. This is so heartbreaking. I have to wonder if our government will do anything or let it just go. Okay, so they are doing something, because you see that with the media who is, so complicit in all of this criminal syndicate money laundering and you know the media are the protectors, the fixers, right? And they manufacture so much. And you see President Trump winning millions of dollars because of they were manufacturing a response from Kamala, right? Kamala Harris. They didn't like her response. They thought it was not presidential enough. And so they manufactured a response to a question and put that up, and they got caught. They got caught doing it, and that affected the election. And so now President Trump sued them, rightfully so, and is getting awarded millions of dollars for that. So the media absolutely have been caught over and over and over again manufacturing a narrative, right? And we saw that with the Walmart mass shooting. We saw that with Richard's case. They put out these false narratives, and in order to cover up for this criminal gang, and so for the media to be covering this story of this mass graveyard with rotting bodies, it's an indication that there is something going on. There's absolutely something going on behind the scenes, and you're part of that because you're the people that watch and share, and um, you're the multiplier. And so that is what moves them. And, so we have social media today, which is, a lot of people think it's a curse, but, and it can be, but it can be a real blessing. And in our case, it's a real blessing. And in this case, it's a real blessing. So thank you so much. Okay, everyone. I will be back tomorrow, God willing, and thank